So, hi everyone. Welcome to the July Reiki Reiju. And as we've been chatting before the recording went on, there was a great question around, well, we started off talking about politics and what was going on in the world of politics, some pretty crazy shit going on, and just talking about negative and positive energy. And there was a question around Reiki, if Reiki is a positive energy, just make sure I get this right? If Reiki is a positive energy, then why sometimes when I'm doing healing for myself, for others, there's still a lot of negativity that comes up, or I get impacted by negativity through my healing of other people? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Yeah. So I would first of all really encourage you to drop the duality of Reiki is a positive energy, because I would actually suggest that Reiki is a neutral energy. And so the positive and negative that we put on it is actually our own assumptions and our own judgment, like human judgment. Reiki is beyond human judgment. Reiki is the universal life force that penetrates and activates, or activate. Will that do? Yeah. Basically is the life force, right? Reiki is universal life force. So if you look at the yin and the yang energies, it is the I want to say the yang energy, but that's not quite right. It is that universal flow of life itself. So it's the energy that makes a flower bloom. It's the energy that makes us wake up in the morning and get out of bed. It's the movement. It's the movement of energy that animates, that's the word I was looking for, animates all life. So it doesn't really have a judgment around whether you're going to feel good or bad. Doesn't really, frankly, it doesn't give a shit. It's like it's just whatever's coming out of your human body, whatever is there to be expressed, is there to be expressed. We as a human being, we then judge it as this is a good feeling or this is a bad feeling, right? When I heal somebody and they feel bad, then something's gone wrong. That's our assumption. And Reiki doesn't make assumptions like that. Reiki is just moving towards more harmony and balance. And I say that not like it's an intellectual force going, oh, making a judgment again. Oh, this is more harmonic. This is more balanced. This is good. This is bad. It's not like that. It's just nature finds balance. Like you just look around, the natural law is it will find balance. So nature always finds balance, and we are part of nature. So we're constantly looking for balance. But then what happens is we judge what is balance and what isn't. So if we are feeling really erratic and we're shouting and screaming, we've been triggered by something and we're having a meltdown, then our personality, our ego judges that as, oh my God, I'm really out of balance. I'm, acting out. I should be guilty. I should be ashamed of myself for acting like this. And then we put all of this judgment on top, right? But we really, when we strip it all down and really look at it from a very non-judgmental, neutral standpoint, it's just triggering, right? It's just an emotion coming out of the body. It might be sadness, might be stress, might be anxiety. It's just a feeling sense, right? Just an emotional sense. Or it might be that when we heal somebody else and there's an opportunity for them to be open and vulnerable, then this negativity that has perhaps been trapped in the body, creating a sense of dysfunction or dis-ease, is allowed to come up. And through that coming up, it's hopefully being released. But again, that's up to the person, right? Because the person might have, and you've probably experienced this yourself, whereby you might have anxiety or anger come up, or sadness or grief comes up through the body, and then we push it back down again. So then what happens is we are then, our personality, our ego mind is then like, no, 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 no. push, 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 resist, resist, resist. We all know that feeling. And then what tends to happen is we prolong the suffering in the body, right? And then we kind of mask it with coping mechanisms and medications. You know, we drink too much, we eat too much, we smoke too much, whatever, exercise too much, even meditate too much, by the way, is an addictive coping mechanism. That's my addictive mechanism of choice. It's like whenever I start to feel a bit like, ooh, I'm like, ooh, I'll just meditate, then I'll feel better. But oftentimes we're just suppressing that kind of stuff. So this idea that Reiki is a positive energy and therefore only positive, nice vibes are experienced with Reiki. One, it's just blatantly not true. Like anybody who's done Reiki for a while knows this is not true because it just doesn't work like that. Sometimes we feel really good and calm with our Reiki. Sometimes we feel more agitated. That's just a fact, right? I think we're lucky in general when we work with Reiki, and because Reiki is a life force moving towards balance, in general, when we feel more balanced, we do feel more calm and more collected and more content and all the things that many of us experience through our Reiki journey. But it is also equally true that sometimes balance means chaos. Look at nature, right? You look at a forest fire that charges through the woods, not created by a human cigarette, but actually created by lightning. It's a natural process and it's a force of nature. It creates enormous chaos and destruction, but it is totally in balance. It is totally natural. It's normal. It's the way of things. And so when we're working with Reiki, we're working with a force of nature. In fact, I'm going to put it as we're working with the force of nature when we work with Reiki. It's an incredibly powerful force, and we don't control it, and we don't control the outcome. You know, we're just a little human being bobbing around with 6 billion other human beings on a tiny little planet in a tiny little solar system. When you keep on going back, it's like, okay, fair dues, I'm not controlling this shit. It's not up to me. And then you start to look at your experience with how it's working. And you kind of have to make a decision whether or not, and this is often what comes up in master training, right? The one question I pose my teachers in training is, what is Reiki? It's a fundamental question. And once you have answered that, like for me, Reiki is universal life force. As it is written, as Usui declared it so, right? So Usui said, calling it Reiki because it's universal life force we're dealing with. Now, if you believe that, if that is also your foundational understanding, then everything else needs to build on top of that. So you can't have universal life force and then also in the same breath say only good things happen or it's positive. Because that universal life force is by definition the entire life force of the universe, which also includes death and destruction and anger and grief and all the other stuff. It includes everything. So I think that often when people have these kind of questions, I encourage you to just keep going back to the foundational question of what is Reiki to you? And you might come up with a different explanation. And this is what I say to people, you know, you're totally entitled to whatever opinion or belief system you have around Reiki, because ultimately none of us know, right? It's just our truth. It's not the truth. We don't know what the truth is, but our own truth. And then just checking in, because often when we hold a belief system and it's challenged, and the only way a belief system can be challenged is when we get outside information that kind of knocks on the door and goes, Yeah, but that's not really true, is it? So, for example, if we go down the line of thinking, well, Reiki, only good things happen with Reiki. And then you look at the evidence. So, this is a very scientifically based research project, right? You need to look at all the stimulus coming in, all the evidence coming in, and then ask yourself, well, does my hypothesis still stand? So, I mean, that's the scientific method. So you have a hypothesis and then you collect the data, and the data needs to match the hypothesis in order for the hypothesis to be true, right? If it's not true, then the hypothesis needs to change, not the evidence. And there's no point just going, well, I'm just going to take some of the data. So when Reiki is good, I'm going to take that. Then I'm doing it right. If Reiki doesn't create the results I want or creates a bad feeling, then obviously I'm doing something wrong. That's a very common assumption, right? I must be doing something wrong, or the person that's giving it to me must be doing something wrong, or something's wrong. Something is not right. Rather than looking at your fundamental assumption of what you think Reiki is. Because if you look at that, and what I found is that when I say that Reiki is universal life force, and therefore it moves in a way that I cannot possibly fathom. I'm just a little human being, living my little human being life. I have no concept about how this universe works. None. None of us do, if we're really honest. We can have lots of beliefs that we try and structure to make ourselves feel safe and secure, but ultimately we have no idea what's going on. None of us do. And it doesn't matter how confident we seem when we tell other people what we think is going on. We really don't know. Nobody knows. So this idea that we are working with the life force itself is kind of miraculous and kind of like mystical and magical and amazing. And then it's like when we let go into that, there's a certain trust that starts to replace the need for security or surety or certainty, right? It's kind of like when Reiki's working through you and you get an unexpected result, much more honest and easier to consider that there is something else going on that perhaps we don't quite understand yet, or perhaps we'll never understand. But if I'm doing my Reiki and I have a very surprising negative, so-called negative reaction, like I start to have like PTSD flashbacks of things that have happened in the past, or I start to feel really traumatized, or I start to cry, or I start to feel pain, or my immediate assumption is not that I've done something wrong. My immediate assumption is that something in my body is trying to balance and harmonize. And then my job is to continue doing my Reiki and be as open as I can to allow that process to happen. That's it. And not add to the process by resisting it, right? Because I know that if I'm resisting it, all I'm doing is pushing it back again into my system. And if it's trying to come out of my system, because I trust 100% that Reiki is always moving towards balance. So therefore, that's my foundational belief. And so far, it matches all the evidence. And so my hypothesis, I'm quite happy with because it stands with all the data I've collected. But I have to say, way back in the day, we're talking like 20, 30 years ago, I also held the belief that Reiki is good. Reiki is a force for good. Only good things happen. And I was constantly disappointed, which is why I changed my hypothesis, because I was like, okay, seriously, this is not working out for me because all I'm feeling is I'm doing it wrong or Reiki is wrong, right? Or maybe I shouldn't be doing Reiki. Maybe Reiki's dangerous. Reiki's making me feel like this. And all of that didn't resonate with me because there was something in me that kept feeling, no, this, I found something here. And actually one of the interviews I did recently with Niru, she said it perfectly. It was like this idea of coming home is like when you, and I remember after my Reiki 1 class, I had the exact same feeling she did. It was like, I'm home. I'm home. So because of that feeling, I always knew that Reiki was correct. Whatever was going on was correct. And if I wasn't fitting in, or my belief system and my belief structure wasn't fitting into that, then that belief structure was the problem, not Reiki. And I think I was kind of lucky with that, but it's just for you guys to check in with yourself. Do you have a similar feeling? There's something around the Reiki energy when I do Reiki for myself that just feels right. There's a rightness to this. And so therefore, if I'm struggling with the way that I'm relating to the Reiki and my journey with Reiki, then it's the way I'm relating that needs to be considered rather than the Reiki itself. It's probably a very long-winded answer to your question, but anyway, that's what it is. Any questions on that?
Yeah. So, in the past, or I guess in the last few years, you've been saying that some people already have Reiki without being attuned to Reiki. So, um, this idea of practicing Reiki and using the thing that like the self-treatment and things like that to help ourselves or to help others. So how do people who already have Reiki do it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, are they somehow helping themselves in some way or helping others?
Well,
I mean, I'm
so there is so there is a little bit of a paradox with Reiki, okay, in that universal life force is obviously all of us, right? And so in a sense, we're all born with universal life force. Like we come from universal life force. If we're really coming down to foundation. So there is that part of the movement of energy or the finding balance of energy that is present from inception, probably, like egg and sperm together already is universal life force in full momentous action. Like that's the first spark that then creates a human being. So at that level, the Reiki is always present. But then the way we use Reiki on a physical level, when we apply Reiki to ourselves, that is a distinct feeling as well, right? So in your own experience, I'm sure you've noticed when I do my Reiki treatment, my self-healing, I feel better. Something in me feels fuller and feels more replenished. So it's almost like as human beings, we still empty. So Reiki is then used as a fuel. And often at Reiki 1, for example, we talk about Reiki being a fuel or an energetic boosting system whereby we can heal ourselves, we can do self-healing, and it actually makes a difference, right? And I still notice that for myself. So all of this is just testable. So when you do a formal Reiki hands-on, do you feel better afterwards, right? And so there is that part of doing your Reiki treatments that even though you might have Reiki coursing through your hands, if you don't apply it, then you could still hit a lot of imbalance. So just because some people have the capacity to have Reiki or healing come out of their hands doesn't mean they apply it to themselves. Does that make sense?
yes, thanks.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, let's just try it. So let's do a healing session. And and do a little experiment. Like we all have Reiki coursing through ourselves, don't we? Does everyone here have Reiki? Just looking at the list. Don't know. Who knows? But we'll do a attunement anyway. We'll call in the Reiki energy. And again, just see if that's different. So here's the thing, even as a Reiki practitioner, when you call in the Reiki through an attunement, something shifts there too, right? So I'm not saying any of this makes sense, by the way. I'm just saying this is the way it is. And so sometimes when you're experimenting with it, I would say don't get too worried if it doesn't make sense. Because why on earth would we assume that our little brain in our little bodies could even conceive of universal life force, right? Like, kind of makes sense that it wouldn't make any sense. So really what we're looking for is the experiential, like what feels true and and how it works for us. And that's it really, and we don't need to really intellectualize it or put it in boxes. We just need to come up. What's the data? What's the data showing us? And then working with that data and using it, right? So what I'm going to suggest we do is we go into Gassho, prayer pose. We call in the Reiki. We ask the Reiki to enter through the hands. And then we will put our hands anywhere on the body that feels comfortable. And we'll do a little guided meditation together. So very gently, just starting to settle the body. Hands in Gassho, prayer pose in front of the heart center. If you're sitting, then you're focused with your feet on the floor, or if you're in cross-leg position, you're just noticing the base chakra, the contact of the base of the spine with the chair or the floor. And then with that lovely grounding, we're going to bring our attention up into the crown chakra, the top of the head. And imagining 1,000-petaled lotus, very gently opening in the crown, calling in the universal life force, the Reiki energy. And just notice as you do this, whether you notice any kind of influx in energy, sensation, lightness. For those of you that already have Reiki in your hands, you might notice your hands activate even before you've intended the Reiki to flow into your hands. Excuse me. And we're just breathing. So you're inhaling Reiki, intending it to come down through the crown into the heart chakra. And with every exhale, you invite the energy to come down through the arms, into the hands, into the palms. And as you bring your focus and attention into the crown, the heart, the hands, you may or may not notice changes in these areas, or in the body, or in the aura, an expansion of energy. Sometimes people experience colors, or heat, or tingling. Or perhaps just a deeper sense of calm as the mind settles, the body settles. And then gently bringing your hands anywhere on the body that feels comfortable. So you could have them palm down on your thighs. You could have them on your tummy. You could have one on your heart center, one on your tummy. But just finding anywhere on your body where you can make contact with your hands so you can start to feel the Reiki coming through your palms. And you'll notice that it is an actual thing. There are actual sensations. There is a flow of energy. Or if you don't perceive a flow of energy, you might perceive sensations around the body part that you're touching. You're just gathering data, what is true for you. Not imagining anything, but feeling into your senses, your body sense. Not trying to make it into anything, just dealing with what is here and now. Being curious and open. What is the data telling you? Not making it into a hypothesis or theory, staying out of your head. And as you do this, you're also allowing the body just to relax into it. Being in this very present moment. There really is nothing to think about, nothing to do. You might notice the breathing and just allow every exhale to relax the body. And as you relax the body, you might just notice that there are still thoughts, still emotions that might arise, aches and pains, tensions. And there's nothing you need to do, allowing the body in its infinite wisdom to balance. You might notice that your attention is drawn to certain parts of the body. And as you exhale, you can allow it to relax. Or you might notice there is a subtle wanting the body to feel different. And just see if you can let that wanting loosen. The body is fine exactly as it is. There's no need to change anything at all. And as you sink into an acceptance for what is right here, what is right now, you might notice a certain relief or relaxation that occurs just because you don't have to do anything. And just notice how that feels. That deep sense of really not having to do anything. Not needing to push or pull, make anything better. No need to get rid of anything. And just allowing that flow of energy. You might even notice that there's a flow of energy through the breath, through the skin. Actually, there's many, many points where the universal energy is very gently allowing us to balance all through the day. And we may choose it to do it deliberately through our Reiki practice, through our meditation practice, through exercise, through mindfulness. Many, many opportunities throughout the day to be in alignment or not. Either way. And whatever thoughts may come up, whatever feelings, not attaching to them, just allowing them to pass through the body. And just notice when we're not trying to do anything with them, how easily it moves through, finding balance and release. And as you continue to keep your attention on the body, the hands, the relaxation, just noticing there's always a movement of some sort. always changing, never the same. And just encouraging now a deeper breath in the body. Allowing your fingers and your toes to wiggle, stretch. Perhaps raising your arms above your head, giving yourself a stretch throughout the whole spine. And whenever you're ready, opening your eyes.